Well, hi there, thoughtful people. This is Terry Dactyl. Welcome to my channel. I kind of want to talk a little bit about why I'm channeling here on YouTube. I've been kind of twisting at the end of a string for over a month now about starting a new endeavor that is focused on my channeling. I have always been aware that I need to reach out to many and be a catalyst for change. And for a long time, I was content to think that that would be through my writing and perhaps teaching, because people who are writing and creating these worlds of the imagination are also passing on kind of little, I don't know what to call them, memes, as it were, of spiritual energy, of higher level thought, of higher consciousness, of awarenesses that transcend our physical boundaries and known nature. When people become engaged in the story process, they shift their awareness. So it's not just an issue of being entertained, although that's kind of the superficial carrot that draws you in. But there's a lot more to it than that. The media and the stories that we take in and absorb as entertainment are speaking to us on a deeper level. And behind that is a whole lot to say about, Jungian archetypes and collective consciousness and the collective unconscious, for that matter. But I have danced around the edges of that for quite a while with my professional writing. And I think the reason that that whole issue has engaged me is because I have felt this need to do more, to reach an audience, to have something packaged in my writing that could serve as a catalyst for change. However, it is not usually a lightning bolt process in writing like that, neither in the writing nor the speed of the change that it sparks. And I have been frustrated because I have felt that I need to do more, do bigger, do better, and my clock is ticking. And I haven't yet had the impact I feel I need to have. Now, I will freely admit there's some ego attached to this. I like recognition. I like positive feedback. But that alone by itself, or the potential for it, is not enough to make me get off my duff and go pursue a different path. However, there is something that will do that, and apparently it is my spirit guide, Thea. Her more proper name is Althea, or that was one of her names when we knew each other in Greece, ancient Greece, and a few other, she says many other. Okay, I sit corrected. Many other times and places. Thea has shown up at this point in time because I was asking for a guide to come forward. I was asking for someone to help me figure out what's next, and figure out what am I doing and how best to move ahead in my life, and on my quest for right work. I look for right play, right work, right action. And I've been floundering on all of those points for a very long time, especially following an illness that nearly killed me some years ago. So ever since then, in particular, I've looked at everything with a critical eye and come up short on answers. Well, meanwhile, I've become more aware of shifts that are happening in the earth energy right now, or I should say the energy around us here on the physical plane, here on the planet Earth. And this is in keeping with premonitions and things I became aware of during my sudden spiritual awakening in November of 1986. And sort of along this line, I have lately felt compelled to listen to a number of psychics and spiritual people through YouTube. I've been sampling several of the current people who call to me. Most of them aren't large channels on YouTube, but they have a vibe, and they're kind of on a wavelength that I share, which of course is why I gravitate to them and repeat listening to them. And all through this process, in the back of my mind came a niggly voice saying, yes, but what about XYZ? And, oh, but he didn't elaborate on that. And the more elaborate answer is ABC. So these snippets would come up as I would hear this input from psychics and tarot readers and people of that ilk on YouTube. And I realized pretty quickly that this wasn't just me doing a left brain rational analysis counter narrative in my head. Rather, a lot of it was coming from my psychic channel from upstairs, from my own guides and higher self prompting me here in the physical body to pay closer attention to the information I have on tap through my channel and that I was receiving in response to the things I was hearing these other people say. So finally I said, okay, I just got to sit down and figure out what's going on. And it instantly became obvious to me that my long disused channel is still there, it is still alive and kicking, and all in spite of my conscious self, it is flowing a lot of information to me. And as soon as I cracked that door open, I became aware once again of my guides. Hi, gang. Hi, they say. Would have never been more than a breath away. My mother, who's out of body now, has for quite a while been a bit of an intermediary when I need assistance. And so when I was at this juncture, I said, I need to make more sense. I need to do a deeper dive. And I said, Mom, can you help hook me up with someone, some individualized entity who can connect with me and help guide me on this part of my path. I need to know what's going on now, why suddenly I'm hearing so much more from the other side. Why do I have this need to connect upstairs when I have gone decades with doing very little of this? And she said, sure. And she haired off. And the next thing you know, Althea was here showing up. And I'll talk more about her in a moment. But I want to take a half step back and say, after my spiritual awakening, I could see auras. I was compelled to do automatic writing that came to me very quickly. That channel was just suddenly open and I could do that. And for a long time I didn't even have shields up or a filter on, and I could just walk in a room and say A, B, C, D, E, F, G about everybody around me, and I could read people like they were written on a chalkboard on the wall, what their thing was, what their issues were, their problems, their really strong points, their weak points, all kinds of personality and life path related things. And it turns out that we all carry this with us as part of our aura. We radiate it to the area around us. It's like our signature energy form. There's many layers of information kind of automatically packed into that form, and we radiate it like a little radio beacon. And it's how we attract simpatico other people. You know, if you walk into a party and it's a busy room and half the people are strangers, but suddenly you're drawn to that one person and you strike up a conversation. Pretty soon the night is over and you two have just been talking like old friends the whole time. Of course, in fact, you may be old friends, karmically speaking, but what drew you there is that person's vibe. Literally, it's a vibration, a frequency that we're putting out on an energy level that people are usually unaware of. But it isn't just a simpatico vibe. It carries information. It's a carrier wave, like a radio channel. So if you tune into that frequency and then you turn up the volume or you work the squelch button a little, those of you who used old-fashioned radios or ham radios know what I'm talking about. You fine-tune what you're connecting with there, and you can read details. So I would do that without, I don't know how to say this. It was like, I want to say without a filter on my part. I would take things in kind of indiscriminately, and whatever it was I was reading was so evident to me. I would say things to people, and they would get disturbed by it or walk away, or in one case, I said something to a bartender who was waiting on me, and she gave me this look and goes, "What, are you stalking me?" And she turned and walked away and didn't serve me. I don't remember what I had said, but it was something off the cuff like, "Oh, you seem like you're like really artistic and you really ought to go pursue that art thing you're thinking about." She was like disturbed that I had read her beyond her public face, beyond the mask she put on to the world. And plus she was a personality that liked to keep people at a safe distance. So suddenly I had seen through to the heart of her and spoken to that thing, and it made her extremely uncomfortable. It took me a little bit of time, not a lot of time, but it did take me a few of these episodes to figure out a lot of people feel uncomfortable when a stranger walks up to them and says something that cuts to their core. Not in a cutting way in the sense that it's bad, but simply a revealing way, something that strikes home. Some people really like it. I did that in a restaurant once. I was just compelled to get up out of my chair and go across the room to a woman who was sitting at a table. When her dinner partner left to go to the bathroom, I said something to her about her juncture she was at in her job and how she might ought to do something else and yada, yada, yada. And she just looked at me kind of amazed. She said, "Oh my gosh," she says, "I've been thinking that, and I don't listen to that inner voice of mine enough." And finally, later I realized some of this is my attention may be drawn by their energy, but often it's an upstairs game of telephone with guides. Uh, your guides go upstairs, they talk to my guides, and my guides come down and talk to me, and then I can articulate that upstairs conversation. So I went on to do readings for people on purpose. When I figured out I could do this quite a while later, some years later, I had a better handle on it. I quit doing it to random people in public, and I started to do intentional readings for folks. And then I realized that a great deal of what was coming down the pipeline wasn't just random info. Instead, it was the result of this kind of coffee clatch upstairs. And I would go upstairs and say, "This person wants to know XYZ. What is it that I need to know in answer to that question?" And then my guides would hop over to that person's guides, and they would all confer and tell me then what that person needed to hear. And usually it was a question of their guides been talking at them for quite a while, but they weren't listening, or a guide was advising or nudging or doing something that they needed on a feedback level, and they couldn't hear it, even though perhaps they wanted to hear it. They just weren't quite tuned in. Their radio wasn't fine-tuned to that frequency. So their guides would use my guides to get the message to me so I could get the message to them in a manner that they could understand and absorb. Now, anybody who's done a lot of reading and particular channeling for other folks know exactly what I'm talking about the upstairs, lunch club where they all share notes and conference about what's going on. It's like you're passing notes back and forth in a classroom. So I was happy to be part of that process. It was of service, and it was enlightening for my client, and kind of interesting / sometimes amazing for me. And plus it taught me better how to use my gift and how to tune in that radio dial and what went into it. But eventually I quit doing that because it was one-on-one, and it was pretty time intensive because I used various things to tune into my subject. And you often use tools as a focus. Sometimes I would use tarot cards. Sometimes I would do some deep meditation and astral travel. Other times I would do esoteric astrology. That was really helpful for me. I don't know a lot about esoteric astrology, but it let me tune into a few key significant factors, and those would spark the right connection that I was looking for. It was like shining a quick spotlight on something and saying, "Oh, look deeper at that thing there." And then psychically I would go look at that thing there, and then the upstairs conversation would happen. Or I would just, extend my senses, and then I could read kind of directly off that person's aura and their isness, and get what it was that they were carrying with them that they needed to hear articulated. But see, this is a very one-to-one process, and also it was very time-consuming and energy-consuming. So although it taught me a lot and helped improve my skills, I also became frustrated with it. The main reason was because it was a one-on-one process and it wasn't reaching a lot of people. And as I started out at the beginning here saying I want to reach many, I feel compelled to reach many, this wasn't doing it. Anyway, not seeing a proper channel to do what I needed to do on a larger scale, I quit doing it. I said, okay, that was that. I see I can do that thing. I see how other people can do that thing. And importantly, I have learned how to create shields and protect myself and not do this with random strangers like I used to, which was disgruntling to them and often a drain of energy on me. And I went on to other things. Well, now, years later, those other things are mostly behind me. And I still have this gift, and I still, it turns out, have this nudge, this persistent nudge to do something meaningful and something that reaches many. And that's where my guides come in these days, and now in the form of Althea, are reminding me of what it is I am capable of doing, and that this is the time of all times where my gift is really needed, because we have a lot of work to do. We collectively, as a human race, we collectively in America, with our own set of problems, we as people in community, neighbors, helping neighbors, and beyond that, helping to bridge this divisiveness that we have going on, because we have something much deeper and much bigger happening, and that is that we are shifting the resonant frequency that surrounds Mother Earth right now. Gaia is taking a step upstairs and taking us with her. We all have known this is coming for many decades, even centuries, since the harmonic convergence in 1987, when kind of the, let's say, the cosmic tuning peg got twisted a little bit of a notch, tightening the string so that our frequency moves up scale. That shift has been percolating through humankind, through human consciousness, through our physical world as well. And it is a large reason why we have so much dissonance right now, because people who are unable or unwilling to make a shift are not going to make the shift. And I need to be participant in this process in a way that will help as many people as possible expand their awareness and make this shift. That process of expanding awareness, I'm not a guru, I'm not anybody, I'm just an ordinary person with a little more awareness about our connection to upstairs and an ability to go there and visit and learn things and share some of that with you folks who are listening to this now. Now, back when I did individual readings, my guides would spend a lot of energy talking about relationships. Back then, it was the context of an individual's relationship in their life, their relationship to their partner, to their work, to themselves. And they still have a proclivity to speak to relationship issues, only now it's on a larger scale, like the relationship of one nation to another, or the relationship of communities to their community challenges. And it's kind of a different scale, but the common thread, I think, is still going to be relationship-centric. So they're disinclined to talk about some subset of political issues, and they're really disinclined to talk about celebrity news or a famous person passed over, do they have a message for us from the other side, that kind of stuff. That's not the kind of question that I'll usually be answering. Although sometimes they have something to say in that regard as well. But I'm not sure until we do it exactly what they want to say or how they're going to address issues or questions. But I do know that as we listen to other psychics on YouTube, for instance, that those folks are answering questions from their viewers. And almost every time one of those viewer questions come in, now I'm starting to get this upstairs chorus that says, yes, but, or yes, and, or don't forget that, da 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 da. So there's this conversation happening upstairs. And right now they're saying it to me, but they want me to say it to you all. So we're going to start there. I'm going to borrow some questions and issues I've read or heard in other folks' public conversations, and we'll take a stab at answering or responding to some of those things. And I'll see where Thea and company want to go with this. Now, later, this session is probably not the time, but later I'll tell you more about Thea and why we work together so well. I also have a particular name for my guides, and I'm not going to share that with you because, as you have noticed, if I'm doing this right at this time in this talk, you will notice that I come to you in the guise of a dinosaur. Or perhaps not strictly a dinosaur, but we'll call this a dinosaur because it's reptiloid and appropriate for this time and place. Now, the reason for this is because I'm going to be speaking about some things, a touch on politics, and there's a massive audience of hateful people out there right now. And some of them are kind of brainwashed people who I live with, and I don't need my real identity being identified with statements and information that are going to piss off the people I live with, to be frank. So this is a little safety practice, mainly for my personal peace of mind in my personal life. Not because I'm necessarily... Okay, I'll stop right there. I don't need to qualify it more than that. This is for my own safety and protection for where I live in a very, shall we say, MAGA/fascistically inclined area. And I'll just leave it at that. So for now, I come to you as a dinosaur with a humbleness and curiosity and eagerness to serve, but also curious about what kind of service this will be, because I am not entirely in charge of that. That's largely in the hands of Spirit and my friends upstairs, and where they want to help steer the ship. So we're going to set sail shortly with something of more topical substance. Meanwhile, if you have questions, please feel free to jot something in the community tab and or here in the comments below, and I will return to you briefly with another installment, and we'll see where we can go from there. Thank you. And I need a more proper ending than this, but this will do for now. Good day.